Okay, so we've had a lot of great tech talks today, and now let's close this conference day with, I think, a talk about some sort of philosophy and some sort of vision behind all the lines of code and the console work. And it's about strategic survival, and it's also a bit of a, let's say, history lesson. And why it is sometimes interesting to look back to make the right decisions in the future. And it's not a talk about Pro.io, and it's not I won't sell you anything. But Sven told me a few minutes before, please tell them we are doing private clouds in the European Union based on Apache CloudStack, privately held company, and hereby I did it. So, okay, let's start. Where did it all start, and what was the basic idea? And the answer we need, or the answer for the answer, we need to go back to the pioneers because they created something truly amazing. And who knows this guy? Okay. And this is the quote from Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and it sounds really simple. And when he created the web, his vision was clear, and it was at this time revolutionary, and it was about transparency and equal participation. So he do not wanted to create a static library. He wanted to create a two-way street. He wanted to create a collaborative space, and his philosophy was based on the idea of open standards, and standards that allow everyone to build, everyone to share, and everyone to collaborate. And this principle that information should be shared openly and used collaboratively is key to understanding the original spirit of the internet. It was a vision of decentralized power, I would say, and through this shared information. But it goes further back. And who knows this guy? Okay, that's good. It's Paul Barron, and he is less famous. But I think his contribution to the internet is perhaps the most fundamental. So, fundamental for a survival of a network. And Barron was working in the 1960s, and he faced one strategic question. How do you build a communication network that could survive a nuclear strike? And his answer to this gave us the DNA of the internet's resilience we know today. And the idea was, for us now, simple. Instead of a single central hub, a single point of failure, he designed a distributed network. And the idea was simple. So he was breaking down data into small units, chunks, and he called them packets. So that is what we all know, it's packet switching. And every piece of information could travel any route. And the idea was to maximize the robustness. And this work laid the foundation of the ARPANET, and the ARPANET, we know it's the internet's predecessor. So what is the conclusion or the core takeaway I would give you, why I showed you these two people? The internet was not designed to be centralized. It was specifically built for survival. That was the idea. And it also was found on deeply philosophical convictions. And it was not motivated by commercial interests nor monetization. It was based on freedom, transparency, and decentralization. That was the basic idea. And the fun part is, these features were not accidental. They were planned. And the ultimate goal was to create a global information system for automated free exchange of data. And first for scientists and later on for everyone. And we will see how far we have drifted from the path. And I have spent many years building IT systems, web-based IT systems. And most of my business life, I worked in and for companies which had the responsibility to operate systems. And for us as technicians, 24/7 resilience, fail safety, failover, redundancy are always core business ideas. And these concepts are still vital today. And today I'm not here as a technology executive, but I think as someone who is deeply invested in the survival of our digital economy. And I think it's about survival because we are tackling actually a critical paradox. We have the internet, and the internet was built for resilience through decentralization. That was the idea. And today, our growing dependency of a few monolithic tech giants creates definitely an unacceptable system risk. And this is why digital sovereignty is not only a philosophical debate, it's part of a fundamental risk management you have to do in a company. And just to give you the short historic lesson, and to show you 3 milestones. And the first milestone is, I would call it the foundation. That's where Paul Barron's idea in 1969 was the first practical implementation of the principles he designed. And it was the first true test of distributed and resilient network infrastructure. So that was, let's say, the birth of the internet. And the second milestone, fast forward, was 1989. And Sir Tim Berners-Lee presented the idea of the World Wide Web. And he gifted us the protocol HTTP, the language HTML, and that transformed the network to the information sharing space we know today. And let's go to a turning point. And I would call it a turning point. I think it's good. It's a true transition. It's 1994, 1995. And here for the first time, more users, private users, were accessing the network for commercial and private purposes than for scientific communication and for scientific research. And that was the moment, that's the reason why I'm showing you this. That's the moment that the public was discovering the internet's potential. And this massive influx brought a lot of opportunity. And it changed the focus fundamentally. From this time, the philosophy of free access began to give way to the logic of commerce. And this laid the chapter we have today. But before I come to this status quo, please take a moment to read this definition. You can switch the Greek characters, but read this definition. And in an oligopoly, the few dominant players have not only pricing control, they also control innovation and market access. And if you are dependent on such an oligopolistic market, your options are limited. And that represents the exact opposite of what the decentralized idea of the internet was, or let's say a resilient network. So now we have the blueprint. That's the status quo. That's the search engine market. And this is the gate, I would say, to the entire internet. It's where the flow of information de facto is controlled. And here the original philosophical conviction of a free open exchange of information has been de facto replaced by monetization and market share. And the market leader determines what we see based on its own interests and on the interests of its customers. And this is guided by algorithms that know us. and they know us very well. These are the browsers we are using today. And I think not much words needed. It's Chrome, Safari, a bit Edge, and the rest. So the open standards Sir Tim Berners-Lee was championing are technically still there. But the access is now channeled through products that serve the interests of a few to know us better every day. And that all reaches its peak here. It's the foundation of all our digital services, actually. It's the cloud infrastructure market. And these are the numbers from second quarter 2025. I think third quarter is 67% of the 3. AWS lost a few numbers, but 67% is the cloud infrastructure market from the big 3 companies. And this is the backbone to the entire digital economy, actually. It's banking, supply chains, government services, potentially everything is running on these platforms. And I would say the network Paul Barron designed for distributed resilience is now de facto a highly single point of failure. And it's highly mission critical, I would say. And we all are completely dependent. And from a strategic position, this is very, very terrifying. But I put here on my notes, disclaimer 1. And it's important for me to have a short information. And this is not about hyperscaler bashing. Definitely not. And I do not question the technical capabilities of these platforms. That is a lot of innovation. That is well-functioning technology. And I know you can build redundant, high availability and redundant infrastructures on these platforms. But these platforms are in the hand of a few companies and under the decision-making authority of a few people. And it's no hate, it's just facing the facts. And we could keep playing this game, on and on. Look at digital advertising. It's controlled almost entirely by a duopoly. Mobile operating systems. It's Android and iOS. These are the gatekeepers to billions of users. E-commerce, it's nearly a monopoly. And the new shit is especially artificial intelligence. And this is where knowledge is consolidated. And not just knowledge, it's for the first time culture as well. It's culture of people and organizations that are in a position to bear the massive costs of training these models. These are, or the models are full of culture and knowledge. And I would say that the vision of the original internet has failed today. And we all, including me, we all exchanged resilience for convenience because it's easy to click. I like the presentation with Learn Linux. It's put your credit card and you get a service. No idea what's behind it. And I see 3 main problems. And these are threatening our digital economy. We have a lack of competition, and the providers reinforce this through switching barriers, through vendor login, and you have low interoperability, and that is also not accidental. That's an idea, that's a product idea. It's not easy to switch a provider because it's made difficult. And that removes competitive pressure, and that slows down innovation. You have a lot of innovation, but just at the big companies based on the commercial interests. And also, we heard it today, you have a constant risk of increasing prices. So what will happen if Amazon says this evening we double all our prices? Nothing is happening. It's just more interesting for AWS. Sovereignty and legal dependency, we also heard it today. We are subject to extraterritorial laws like the US Cloud Act. And the risk of direct data access that is a fundamental loss of control over critical assets. And that must be assessed. So, full stop. But I think the most acute risk is no resilience. And I think concentration always leads to massive systemic accumulation risks. And meanwhile, across all vital sectors, we know. And a single software error at a critical provider or a DNS error can trigger a cascading failure across entire industries. We saw this in October with US East. We saw this this week with Cloudflare. And it took down countless services worldwide. But I think this is just technical. I think the most important part is that one organizational change or one people-driven decision, not a technical problem again, could trigger such a systemic risk. Yep. But no, that's not the goal here. The goal is to be pragmatic and to look the facts in the face. And I think we need to understand the risk before we can solve it. And let me be clear, I do not have a perfect solution here in my pocket that will fix all the problems tomorrow morning. But however, we should continue to address this issue. And this talk should therefore be seen as another warning or reminder. And the truth is that everyone here in this room at an open source conference is already part of the solution. Maybe it's just about embracing the original spirit of the internet, and we could all transform this potential risk into a strategic opportunity, good opportunities. I don't know if is there a way out, but the good news is that the solution is not new. We knew it. And it's a return to the internet's original philosophy. But I think the shift is not only a technical shift, it's also a strategic and ethical decision. And we need to shift our mindset back away from just consuming the services we need for our value creation chain in our company towards creating our own foundation, own technical foundation. We could check our single vendor strategy. It could be dangerous. And you might say, yeah, multi-cloud management is more work. Yes, it is. But managing the risk of a single vendor login is, in my opinion, far more critical. And to make a start, we could all establish a second vendor as risk mitigation, as backup strategy for your existing infrastructure. And that could be a solid step towards redundancy. And open source, we all know here, is a practical possibility to revive the original vision. I think proprietary software has its place, but both must exist in some sort of harmony. And we see that platforms like Apache CloudStack, they are not just an alternative, they are a foundation for control. And open source ensures the necessary transparency and auditability we need. And last but not least, we had it this morning, we all must build internal skills. And I think a lot of companies have rested and thinking innovation would happen somehow with the big players and we would simply be the beneficiaries of it. And we need to stop this. We have to bring back the ideas and the innovations to our own companies. We should invest in our young people. We heard it again this morning. And then give something back to the community. And for you all, open source, spread the word and don't be quiet. Just a few words. And it's the elephant in the room. It's regulation. And there's new legislation coming up or emerging, especially in the EU. And the implementation is often slow and really complex. But the intent is that, or let's say the underlying ideas are good. Fair rules, reducing vendor login, increasing interoperability. And sometimes regulation can be the necessary tool to restore balance on the market, just as idea. Don't hate them outright. And I think the discussion about, it's an own topic, so just a few words about regulation. Yes, nevertheless, it will not be easy. But as technicians, I think we will all agree that the principle of redundancy makes sense. And it's technically superior. So how do we start? And I don't have, as I said, the standard answer, but I highly recommend the philosophy of James Clear's book Atomic Habits. And the German title, it's a bit clearer. It's the 1% Methode, the 1% method. And the idea is just aim to be 1% better every day. Establish a second vendor, start training an internal expert, dedicate 1 hour of researching a new open source platform, go to the next CloudStack conference. Or let's talk about new ideas this evening with a few drinks. And I think little by little, and one step at a time, we will surely be able to bring back the balance, redundancy, and transparency to the internet. And last but not least, disclaimer too. This is not a call for complete end to commercialization, nor is it a call to eliminate proprietary software. And we all know that the combination of commercialization and open source is working. But we need some sort of balance, and that could be a sustainable way forward. Yeah, that was it. And we created a little landing page with some interesting reads, studies, articles I used to create this presentation. And maybe these are interesting for you, so feel free to scan it. And last but not least, oh, was I too fast? So I see. And last but not least, the most important slide of the day, I heard. Thank you very much.